Every time I hear this intro fade in, I get goosebumps. I can't name another song that has ever been this satisfying to listen to, ever since I first heard it when I was 15 years old. There are many songs that try to replicate the feeling of this one, but none match it exactly. There are bands that are formed whose sound worships this song throughout their entire career. I don't think, though, that this song has received nearly enough the reputation that it deserves in the almost 50 years since it came out. Like Good Vibrations or Rumble or I Want You, She's So Heavy before it, the sound of this track penetrated popular music and became a defining sound of the art rock in the 1970s, pop music and underground classics of the 80s, shoegaze and indie rock of the 90s, and alternative rock and dozens of other subgenres since then. From the incredibly accurate and aptly titled Noi, this is Hallogallo. Neu, or New auf Deutsch, was mainly Klaus Dinger and Michael Rother, formed in 1971 in Dusseldorf, Germany. Dinger was the drummer of another incredibly important and unique group, Kraftwerk, and after the completion of their first eponymous album in 1970, Michael Rother joined as a guitarist. The two left the group in 1971 and formed Neu, taking their name from the common use of the word in advertising in Dusseldorf at the time. The duo recorded their debut self-titled LP in December of 1971 under the engineering of the soon-to-be legendary Conny Plank at Star Studios in Hamburg, and it was released in 1972. The first song on the record is Hallogallo, apparently slang for wild partying, and hallo literally being hello. The song opens with two guitars panned to either channel. The left channel is playing a sort of beat on two E notes, and the right is simply strumming a palm-muted pattern while messing with a wah pedal. There's no majors or minors or chords, and the only other note that will be added to this main riff is a D. And then the drums come in. A few seconds after the guitars fade in, perhaps the greatest drum beat of all time comes in. It's almost frustrating how incredibly simple yet how genius and innovative it is at the same time. Kick, kick, snare, kick, 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 snare, kick, 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 snare, over and over, including hi-hats on the eighth notes or sometimes a low tom drum. This pattern does not cease, it is not yielding, it is absolutely unforgiving in a robotic-like groove or rhythm which it's locked into, and it stays for the duration of the almost 10-minute song. The beat, commonly referred to now as a motoric, meaning motor skill, although I'm more inclined to call it something like the krautrock backbeat, has its creation associated with Jackie or Jockey Liebzeit, an incredible drummer from the equally influential German group Can. To me, the beat is more present and important here than on any Can song of the time. The earliest thing that precedes it in rock music that I know of is the beat used by Bob Bennett of the Sonics on their 1965 debut album, Here Are the Sonics, which can be heard here in the song Psycho. The Sonics are perhaps the earliest proto-punk group, even before the Stooges came around a few years later, but that's another story for another video. The beat used in Hallogallo and Negative Land on this Neu album are, if I can speculate for a minute, possibly inspired by and a result of listening to the Sonics and other American groups in a time where rhythm and intense playing was becoming slowly more popular, until the Stooges and the Ramones shot this intensity from their instruments and from their mouths, and punk was born in the 70s, and anger and madness became the new important sound of the era. Not long after the drums come in on Hallogallo, a third guitar enters, this one bringing in ghostly backwards sounding notes as if they were falling from the sky onto the center of the track. Another guitar or two enters, and some riffage continues on for the rest of the song. No big changes happen, the drums stay the same with some fills and crash hits, and the guitars do their thing and mess around, and the waka waka of the wah remains. It feels like racing on a speedway or driving down a highway, many have felt. If you listen, it's almost as if you're hearing a group unlike any other group before or since that has come right out of the future. How far into the future? A good estimate, I think, is about 17 to 20 years when this beat and these guitar rhythms and the soaring innovative guitar sounds became popular in the underground. And if you listen longer, just sitting there, paying attention to the music and nothing else, it's easy to get so sucked in. It's a drug trip of sorts, so out there, so weirdly hypnotic, and so intense and different feeling. The groove, deadly, hyper-focused, insanely advanced sounding, continues to the end of the track. It never lets up, and along the way are bouts of softness and loudness to keep things interesting and never draw your attention away. It's like a series of build-ups and climaxes, but nothing really happens during the song besides the cool sounds. I think that's the beauty of it, and I think that's why the drug trip comparison works very well. To say I'm obsessed with this song, this album, or this group is an understatement. The beat of those drums and the unrelenting repetition and groove of the guitars is almost embedded into my soul at this point. And I was not the first person to take notice to this otherworldly repetition. Brian Eno and David Bowie were heavily inspired by Neu. Michael Rother formed a krautrock group called Harmonia with a duo known as Cluster in 1973, and Brian Eno joined the group for 11 days in 1976 to record music with them. He then went on to work with David Bowie on the Berlin trilogy. David Bowie, while living in Berlin, took heavy influence from krautrock groups at the time, like Harmonia and Neu, with perhaps Bowie's greatest album, Heroes, and the song of the same name, popularly regarded as one of the greatest popular music songs ever recorded, taking the name from the Neu song, Hero, from Neu 75, the third and final of Neu's main released albums. The band Stereolab's earlier music worshipped the Hallogallo sound on album after album, with my personal current favorite song of all time, Lo Boob Oscillator, released initially as a single in October 1993, the best example of this. The song begins as a dreamy, beautiful French-sung indie rock song, and then entirely switches directions and curves into one of the closest and best Hallogallo worship tracks I can think of. Although I say worship track, I do not mean this negatively at all. Most songs from groups that try to sound like Neu are fantastic. I mean, listen to this. It's fucking stunning. An even more popular example of the krautrock backbeat and some subtle Neu nods is in much of the music My Bloody Valentine was releasing in 1990 and 1991. Another one of the arguable greatest songs ever recorded, When You Sleep, from another one of the arguable greatest albums ever recorded, Loveless, includes the kick kick snare kick 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 snare. This is more than coincidence. Groups like this are fully aware of who they are taking from and just how good it sounds. It's almost like using the song structure as an almost surefire way to make a great, memorable, hypnotic song. So many groups continue to use the beat and the Neu guitar sounds to this day. I've put together a Spotify playlist of songs I know of that include the motoric beat, ordered chronologically. Interestingly, when creating a playlist called the motoric, Spotify knew what kind of songs to recommend for it before I even added any. That would be songs with the motoric. Although I don't use Spotify myself, I thought it would be a fun idea to make this playlist for anybody interested, and to catalog my own noticing of the 4/4 krautrock backbeat, and it's not necessarily finished. Spotify had good suggestions, so I will be listening to those and adding to the playlist accordingly over time. If you have any suggestions for songs that explicitly have that motoric, share them down below, and I'll check them out and add them if I haven't already. Thanks for watching. Bum, bum.